of Makerere University. He is also the coordinator of the LLM, Human Rights and Democratization in Africa program, and patron of the Mood Society at the school. His research interests are in areas of international criminal law, transitional justice, international law, critical approaches to law and development, good governance, constitutionalism, corruption, social economic rights, and death penalty studies. He teaches international law and history, the law of evidence, criminology, and penology. He has won a number of scholarships and prizes like the Commonwealth Scholarship, SIDS Scholarship, Shared Commonwealth Cambridge Trust, and DFID Scholarship, as well as the Chief and Attorney General Prize for Academic Excellence at LDC. Daniel is an advocate of the High Court of Uganda and President Emeritus of the Uganda Christian Lawyers Fraternity. He has consulted for a number of organizations, including the Office of the Directorate of Public Prosecutions, the Judiciary of Uganda, the Parliamentary ASF, the Justice, Law and Order Sector of Uganda, IDA Uganda, CIVSOS Uganda, Foundation for Human Rights Initiative, Citizens Coalition for Electoral Democracy in Uganda, Uganda Joint Christian Council, amongst others. He has authored a number of journal articles and working papers, including a student guidebook entitled "We Don't Teach That at the University: Confessions of a University Don." Daniel is also a Rotarian and a member of the following land professional societies: the Oxford and Cambridge Society of Uganda, East African Law Society, Uganda Law Society, the Doctorate Network Uganda, Uganda Christian Lawyers Fraternity, Makerere University Academic Staff Association, among others. He is also married to Claire with 4 children. Welcome, Dr. Rubeza, to the mentorship class. We are honored to have you this morning.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you very much for having me today. It's always an honor to be part of the conversations regarding the mentorship of young people. I would like to welcome those who have come to support me in this conversation. Thank you for joining the call. Always a pleasure, and always feel honored when people honor your invitation. So thank you, Mr. Andrew Bugembe, and your dear wife for seeing value in me once again. Always happy to join in and to have these conversations with you. So I logged in slightly earlier to listen to what was being discussed, and I enjoyed the conversation. I am going to, like Andrew said, I'll share my own story, and I know that my story should not be the only story of how people have met and built healthy relationships, but hopefully in my story you will be able to pick certain lessons of what I experienced, and maybe that can also inspire some of your own journeys, some of your own stories. Always a pleasure. But I also know that some people have had amazing relationships. I know of one couple still in love with each other. The man got a spiritual conviction. The lady was also got a spiritual conviction, and basically they didn't even date, they just went on to get married. That is a unique story, and as I always say, God works in mysterious ways. But before I begin, I would like to set some foundation ground by relating maybe some responses to what I personally have scene that is very, very important. And then I'll share my story with Claire. Claire sends you her regards, and I told her, what would you want me to share with the mentorship class before? What would you want me to share with them? And then she said, tell them that first and foremost, they should make friends. They should make friends. And I think that is a good place to start. Please, please, please make friends. Make friends of everybody. The university gives us an opportunity to be able to make friends of various individuals. And I would really encourage you to be in a space where you can make friends. Number 2, guard your heart. Guard your heart. Guard your heart as much as possible. They say the Bible says guard your heart, for out of it flow the outsprings of life. Number 3, be holistic. Other relationships also help you. There is a certain assumption that when you are dating that individual, they will answer everything. The truth is that they will not answer everything. Many times you hear people say, oh, we gel together. She gets me, I get her. We have common interests and common dislikes. If you have common interests and common dislikes, you better run. Because ideally, opposites are supposed to attract, So anyway, think about it. But have relationships with many people, because you see, boys are different from girls and vice versa. There are certain things I am so passionate about, like wild animals and going out on a camp in a national park. My wife will not touch any link that deals with having a camp in a national park. No, she does not want that at all. So where do I get to be fulfilled in that? Is with my own friends, my boys, the guys with whom I can do life. Those are the people that I can be able to engage with and have a blast. Who am I going to talk about? Vehicles and many things that ideally, speed, guns. There are things that are really about boys, and there are things about girls. My wife has a separate WhatsApp group which is just for her and herself, where she posts all the kind of designs and dresses and stuff that she likes. I can't fulfill that in her. She has to get it from herself. She has to get it from her sisters. She has to get it from other people. My wife is an architect by training. She has groups dealing with architecture and things like that, which I will never be able to fulfill, even if I tried my best to do so. So have friends that can fill those areas that you will not be able to get from your loved one, if you get one. Number 3 or number 5 or 6, do not relate in isolation. Always have friends around you that can help you and hold you accountable. Some of the challenges people face especially in compromising situations, is because you do not have any people around you to support you, to give you advice. And as I'll share with you in my own story, we really benefited from not relating in isolation. There are people who would come. I remember I have a friend called Eric, and I hope he joins the call. One time I went visiting. We used to call it benching in my time. I used to visit. My wife was in she was in Africa Hall. And so I go visiting in the early days of our relationship with this friend of mine, Eric. When we had finished, Eric told me, man, loosen up. Loosen up. You guys are just too serious with each other. Loosen up. Be free. Enjoy each other's presence. You are also uptight and so on. And he gave me some really good advice. He gave me some really good advice in that regard. Have a joke, laugh about, and so on. I remember in those days I used to go with to visit Claire, and I had a list of things that I wanted to talk about, and I'd written them down. So it was like I was going for a test or an examination. He told me, nah, mad boss, just calm down, loosen up, you know. The other thing I need you to understand, beware of your mental health. The university environment presents so many situations that can challenge your mental health. So beware of your mental health. Always have people with whom you can offload your challenges. You know, one thing we need to know is that a relationship is serious emotional investment. It's amazing the number of nights I spent just awake, you know, just thinking about Claire, thinking about the relationship. Where aren't I understanding her? Why isn't she understanding me? A lot of mental health issues at that time that you may not understand. The other thing she asked me to share with you is to pray. I know some of you may not be believers, but hopefully most of you are. Pray about the situation you are going through. Pray about your relationship, you know. Commit time to God about it. Do not underestimate the spiritual connotations of being in a relationship. You know, I know of ladies who got into relationships and found out that they were related to these men, that they were related to these boys, either as cousins or clansmates and so on and so forth. And when the relationship broke, it was such a heavy toll on them. So please do not forget to pray. Do not forget to pray about the relationship. Do not forget to pray and ask God to show you what is going on. So pray. And for the men here, commitment is key. You know, when you've made a decision, commit to it and fight. In my book, we don't teach this. We don't teach that at the university. In my book, I talk about having the grit to hang on, the grit to hold on to it. Claire and I started relating when I was in my second year and she was in her first year. And you know, to know that we are still at it today, it shows there had to be a lot of commitment on my part and a willingness to learn. The other thing I want to challenge you is do not leave a trail of failures. Try not to leave a trail of failures. You know, a trail of relationships that have gone wrong. At the slightest sign of trouble, you want to run away. Do not leave a trail of failures. Treat your brother, treat your loved one either as a brother or as a sister. I mean, not like you know, brother and sister as we understand it in the family setting, but the way you treat your brother, the way you treat your sister, with respect, with consideration, even when you extend forgiveness, is the way you need to treat others in that regard. All right. So be careful. Would you, for example, abuse the body of your brother or your sister? Would you just touch them? They are what we call bad touches. You know, if you really respect this individual, respect them. You know, for the girls, be considerate about how you dress when you're meeting this individual, and for the boys, be considerate about where you put your hands and how govern. The Baganda say mwefuge. Let these hands be governed. Do not just take them all over the place. You're touching everything, and maybe because that person doesn't know how to deal, they may let you, but it's not really what they want. You know, and as they are gaining their momentum to be able to be strong against you, do not abuse that situation. Remember, there is a heavy emotional investment on ladies when they get into a relationship, and when you have, you know, basically abused their bodies, not respected them, you do things and then you go and tell your brothers. I write in my blog. There's a blog piece where I write, don't kiss and tell. You know, there are boys who go around telling everyone, oh, I slept with that one, I slept with the other, and you destroy this girl's weakness at that point. Yet you're supposed to be the stronger one. Claire wanted me to tell you that you're supposed to be the leader, all right? And therefore, for girls and also for boys, we need to set boundaries. Sometimes it helps us when we relate in groups. And let me say this, much as we in that at your age you are at the highest sexual what is it called, temperature is very, very high. But just get to know that there is coming a time when your temperature is going to go low, and the worst thing you can do is to regret why you did not exercise self-control at that point. You know, some of the boys that some people have ended up sleeping with, you wonder, when I say sleeping, I mean sexual intercourse. You wonder, why would I even have, what made me fall? In fact, this guy is such a douchebag, and all these other words you start using. But it is too late. You've already given them your most prized gift as a girl and your most prized gift as a boy. So try as much as possible. I remember when we were dating, there was a book I read, and they were saying that if you can keep your hands away from your loved one for 30 days, you know, then maybe there is hope. Because the truth is, when you get married like I have, and you have children like I have, the older you are, the more you get into living life, there are other things that are pressing needs. Looking for fees for your children, mentoring other people, work, and all these other challenges, and you actually need to timetable to ensure that you continue to have a sexual relationship. Otherwise, you can easily grow apart, you know. And I say this to you because I need you to understand. Otherwise, other people are going to tell you that sex is amazing, you can't do without it, and so on and so forth. I challenge you, even those who have already started engaging in a sexual relationship, if you want to know whether or not this relationship is more than just sex, cut off sex for 30, 60 days. Personally, I would say stop totally. Let's be very clear, stop totally, because sex has a way in which it deceives you that you are in love when actually you are not. You know, and those who have not yet engaged and you're doing a lot of heavy petting and so on and so forth, I would challenge you, stop. Those who, basically the point I'm making, that if for 30 days you are able to control yourself, then there is hope. And in those 30 days, if you can develop other things you can talk about, discuss, enjoy each other's company, etc., work on projects, go visiting, go to the museum and all these other things. If all you do in your relationship is a sexual one, then you should begin to realize that there is a problem here. All right. Claire also wanted me to share with you that, boys, you are the leaders. You may run, you may sit back, but you are the leader. Even when you don't lead, you are leading. All right. So lead in things such as money management, lead in things such as where the relationship is going to go, lead in things such as prayer lives. Pray together. Make it a point to pray together, because you're going to be the spiritual lead of your relationship, even when you get married. All right. Even when you get married, you are going to be the spiritual lead. Okay. Now let me say a few other things which are not necessarily from Claire, but from me, which hopefully, then by the time I tell you my story, you're able to place some of these issues in the conversation. All right. So be patient with me. Now, being a leader is not being a boss. All right. Being a leader is giving leadership, spiritual leadership, guidance, and so on and so forth. Now, what I want you to know is that there is a book called The 5 Capitals. The 5 capitals that I've mentioned, and I think some people have heard me speak, and it is all written in this book, and I would encourage you to get it. The 5 capitals are spiritual capital, financial capital, relational capital, intellectual capital, and then physical capital. I'll say it again. Physical capital, relational capital, financial, spiritual, and intellectual. You as an individual, before you get into a relationship, I would like to challenge you to first work on you. In this book, I talk about who are you. Who do you think you are? What are your temperaments? What are your value systems? What do you prioritize in life? What is your goal? What is your vision? And I'm sure that in the mentorship space, in the mentorship class, you have discussed most of these issues already, and I am glad about that. Now, invest in the 5 capitals. Let's begin. Spiritual capital, your prayer life, your reading of the Bible. I know that there may be people on the call who are not necessarily Christians, but I would like to challenge you to develop a spiritual capital, because out of the wellness, out of the heart, your mouth will speak. Out of your spiritual man, we begin to see your character, your value systems, your hard work, your prioritization, all these things about treat women decently, treat men with respect, and so on and so forth, dressing decently, and so on, come out of a spiritual capital. Very important. Even your ability to control your sexual urges, your anger, emotional intelligence, the ability to control your emotions and the emotions of others, all will come. And there's a book, there's a chapter here, I think, on emotional intelligence. All that comes from developing a spiritual capital. Number 2, financial capital. For a man, you need to begin to know that leading your wife also needs to be through how you manage finances. Now, my story is that when we started dating, actually when we were still friends, I told Claire, let's open up a bank account. At that time, I was only working in the New Vision as a contributor of articles, and I had a little bit of money, not much, hardly 100K. But I said, let's open up a bank account, because I was beginning to see what the future was looking like for Claire and I. So we opened up this bank account, didn't have much money. I think at some point she would put some of her money that she would receive from the university, because she was a government student doing architecture, and me, the man I would get work, would put it there and so on. But we developed a culture of being accountable to each other financially. So I put myself out there, you know. And Claire told me one time that I came and said, we've made money, and I had made 30K. Now, I don't encourage men to make only 30K. But I'd made money, and I was so excited. I was saying, I've made money, here is it, how do we deal with it, and so on and so forth. That action alone made her convinced that this guy is going somewhere, that he is going to, he will be responsible. And up to today, whenever I make money, yesterday I spoke at a certain fellowship, and I was given some money, and I told her this morning, oh, I've received this amount of money, I've paid tithe on the money, and you know, and I accounted for the money. Sometimes we put it into the joint account, and so on and so forth. Financial capital, being able to lead financially. When we started dating, I remember Claire told me, I'm going to adjust this a bit. I remember Claire told me that we need to basically begin to do, sorry, thing is not working very well. She told me that we are going to, I remember I just started working in the law firm. I'd been given some money, and I was thinking of buying neckties, suits, and ties, because I wanted to blend with the Jones. The other thing you need to take note of in your relationship and when you're at campus is peer pressure. Ooh, peer pressure. Do you have a girlfriend? You don't have a girlfriend? If you have a girlfriend, where are you taking her out? Are you sleeping with her? And so on. All that is peer pressure. And that is why your value system, and I talk about values here, is very key. Not hanging out with the Jones or trying to feel like the Jones. So anyway, I told her I wanted to buy a suit, and so on. She said, no, you give me that money. So she gives me the money. I give her the money. It was in dollars. And then by then her mother was doing business. So Claire went and ordered for a fridge for me, a microwave, and a radio. I think there was something else that I've forgotten. Those things worked for me for a very long time. For a very, very long time. So financial capital is key, but you also need to experience trusting others immediately. Trusting your spouse immediately. You're not going to start trusting that person when you're married. You start when you are dating. You start when you are dating. So financial capital is very key. And I know that the Bugembes have really invested a lot of time in that area. Number 3, intellectual capital. What books are you reading? I'm sure that you've read quite a number of books in the mentorship class. For those who are guests here and you've never read my book, come on now, you need to read it. And that is just one of very many books. Very many books. Someone once said that in a relationship, charm lasts for about 10 seconds or 10 minutes. Then people want to know what's in the content of your brain. What is coming out of your brain? What is there? If there is nothing, people run away. Intellectual capital. Over and above your classwork, you must get to read books. T.D. Jakes, John Maxwell, and all these other books are so important for you. Read them. Because now you're upping your game. You're upping your game for the relationship by investing. Okay? And for men here, because I'm passionate about the boy child, for men here, if you don't got it, you've not got it, man. And if you meet women as brilliant as Muchala Bugembe, she's a Gayaza girl, of course even Namabunga and other schools, but I'm biased because Claire was in Gayaza. If you meet people like Claire, the lady is doing architecture, in her senior year, she was the best in mathematics competition. Man, you've got to have something to give. Intellectual capital. So financial, spiritual, intellectual, physical, what we eat. Every morning, Claire is telling me, let's take a walk. We need to cut this masavu. We need to exercise. Every Saturday morning, we ideally have a plan, my friends and I, to take a walk, and hit about 14 kilometers and so on and so forth. Physical capital, what we eat, what we consume. I know I am struggling in that area. And that is a space that I need to up my game. But I will not shy from telling you that that's a space we must invest in. This morning, Claire was telling me, have you drank your water? I need to drink my water. I need to eat well, avoid certain foods and things like that. Sleep early, Physical capital. So I've talked about, the last one is relational capital. How many friends do you have? On Facebook, you may have 5,000 friends, but how many friends are actually your friends? One of my friends told me that you are all over the place, but who are your true friends? How many friends do you actually have? How many friends do you actually have? The people who will come to your beck and call when you are in need. Who are your friends? Who are your friends? That is very, very important to invest in meaningful relationships. Earlier on, Denise was talking about the fact that there are friends that leave you at the end of campus. It is true. It is true. But there will be those friends who will never leave you, who will be with you come rain, come sunshine. They will follow you up. I have some of those friends. Even when I went to study outside the country, they kept on pursuing me, writing me letters, keeping in touch up to today. And I know that if I was in a point of need, they would come to my beck and call. Invest in friends. Because it is your friends who will tell you that, by the way, the Baganda say automede, meaning that you have made a wrong choice in the spouse that you have chosen, in the girlfriend or the boyfriend you have chosen to invest emotionally. They will tell you that, I don't feel it. In my spirit, I don't feel it. One time I had a friend, and Claire told me, there's something about that individual. I'll not tell you whether they are male or female. Say there's something about that individual. Run away. So invest in your spiritual, financial, intellectual, physical, and relational capitals. Now let me say just a little bit of stuff before I get into my story regarding what I learned from the university, which I think is very important based on what I heard you guys talk about. 1, declare a thing and it shall come to pass. If you declare that the university is going to be hard, it will be hard. There is power in the tongue. So declare a thing and it will come to pass. If you say university will be successful, you'll have successful relationships, they will come to pass. Number 2, beware of your situation. Some of you have never been out, so you're going to be excited in your relationship finding. Beware of the night walks. Beware of your own personal security. Night walks and personal security. Sexual abuse can easily happen wherever you are, especially when you start moving around at night. Moreover, you're dressed skimpily and so on. Even for the boys, you have to be careful. You can be beaten at the back of your head and you die. Beware of pimped drinks. Your friends are taking you out and then they start pimping your drinks, like Denise and others were saying at the beginning. The next thing, you're in Instagram, someone has taken a photo or video of you engaging in all kinds of activities because your mental capacities have been compromised. When you go on dates, try to go with friends as you're getting to know the people around you. And when you are on campus, I challenge you, do not just hang out with the common people. Try and have a national outlook. All right? This is your opportunity to know people from different parts of the nation and of the world, depending on where you go to study. And that gives you an opportunity to know more people, so that by the time you start making your choices, you have the right people to choose from. I can't emphasize enough spiritual life, because it helps. I can't emphasize enough having respectful conversations, especially on WhatsApp. Be careful what you post on WhatsApp, even in your excitement and so on, because people can easily screenshot it and post it somewhere. Be careful. Be careful also to respect yourself and have value systems, because at the end of the day, people will remember you based on the values that you espouse. It's very interesting. They remember you based on the values you espouse. Now, let me tell you about Claire, now that I've gotten all that out of the way, and maybe I have 10-20 minutes left. So, I went to Busoga College, Mwiri. It's the best school in the world. Temuwakana, it's the best school in the world. And Claire was in Gayaza, but we had actually gone to the same primary school. Anyway, so she comes through the Scripture Union. We have a chat. Scripture Union was visiting Busoga College. We became friends. We started writing to each other, and then we started hanging out in a group. Let me emphasize that, from church. All right. Now, when you're hanging out with friends, always remember you're also on the lookout to understand who the people are that are around you. 2 things stood out for me about Claire. When she would come to church, she would not come to church alone. She would come to church with her siblings, and she was taking care of her siblings. I remember making a mental note to myself at some point and saying that whoever is going to marry this lady is going to be will be a lucky man. Not knowing I was talking about myself. Why? I saw the way she was looking after her siblings, and in my mind I was like, this girl is responsible. She will be responsible when time comes for her to build a family. So when you're dating friends, look out. How do the boys behave? How do the girls behave? Number 2. The second thing that I loved about her, she had a lot of hair, long hair. And I like long hair, but of course it's just momentary. Afterwards, if you see her right now, the hair is cut short. My priorities have changed and so on. But those things make a lot of sense for us as men. Why am I saying this? Presentability. Claire used to dress decently. She used to dress decently. She was not showing the whole world what her body looked like. And I made a mental note about that. So if someone had asked me about who Claire was at that point, I would say there's a decent girl who is responsible. In my mind, wife material. The third thing, apart from all my friends in that group, Claire was the most responsible. She would call me, check on me. The day she heard that my father was sick, in bed in the hospital, Claire said, I'm going to come and visit your father. She was just being herself. No hidden intentions at that point. I knew my eyes were on someone else at that point in time, or other people at that point in time. But she excelled in being able to be the one who had. When I said that my father is sick, she's probably the only friend who is a girl who said, can I come and see him? And when she came to see him, she didn't come ngalonsa. She came, I think, with some juice. I was like, this girl is different. Maybe because I assumed she's a Gayaza girl, I don't know. Then when I used to organize birthday parties, and this lady was recommended by her friend that they said, Dan, if you want someone to do for you a birthday, I think I wanted chips at that point. If you want someone to do for you chips, talk to Claire. When I asked her, she agreed. I said, wow. I began to even feel indebted. Then when the person supposed to make the cake for one of those birthday parties pulled out at the last minute, and they said, you talk to Claire, she will help you. So I asked her, Claire, can you help me, man? The person doing the cake has not whatever. She said, it's fine, I will do it for you. So she did the cake. The icing, she used some butter something. She had gone to do a training at YMCA on culinary skills and so on. Sure, she did the cake for me. Now already Claire had just what is called not extinguished. She had extinguished herself from the rest of the pack. I started seeing her in a more respectful way. This girl is serious. Moreover, she's doing architecture and so on and so forth. And when she would call me, I used to have girls who would call me from campus. When she would call me, she was not in this low-key conversations. You didn't come to see me, and this less content stuff. I'm sorry if I have not used the right word. But, we would engage in conversations that would leave me challenged to be a better person. What's your view on this? And you see, the other thing, Claire listened. She would listen to me. When I told her I'm passionate about politics, she bought me 2 books. One book was on Mahatma Gandhi. The other book was on Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. When I told her I'm passionate about leadership, when she used to work at some place, I'll tell you next time, and she printed out quotations on leadership and gave them to me. I was like, this one, this is the good material, And so I also then began to be very intentional about my relationship with her, We started writing, we started hanging out, and so on and so forth. So much so that people started asking her whether she and I were dating even before we started the dating. And we were hanging out. Then I started writing her poems and so on. Then one time when we were having an ice cream, she said, but do you write poems for everyone? And I was like, yeah, I had been caught off guard. But when I went back home that evening, I said, no, actually, I don't write poetry for everybody. I don't hang out with everyone the way I do. I don't intentionally. Then it dawned on me that our relationship had gone to another level. So I remember at one point I sat her down and said, you know what, I really like you. I used the word like. Then we chatted a bit. Then I realized I loved her. So I prepared on a certain day in March. It was March the 16th of that year. I remember it because it was her mother's birthday. I got to my room. I pulled out my blue necktie, my blue pair of pants, my blue socks, my black shoes, and my white short-sleeved shirt. And my hair was properly trimmed, the way you see me now. And I said, this day will either make me or break me. But I was determined to tell her my heart. So I told her my heart. Later in the evening, when I'd gone to bench her in Africa, and as she was escorting me, I said, I have something to tell you. And I said, I think this relationship of ours, I don't think I can be friends with you anymore. I believe I'm in love with you, and I would like to take it on from that. And I said, I am not in the habit of dating every Tom, Dick, and every Janet, Joyce, and Julie instead of Tom, Dick, and Harry. I would like to be serious about this relationship. I think you're worth, and I would like, for me, I'm serious. I want to get married. Now, that's my story. It's different from yours. Then I told her, take your time. Think about it. You don't have to give me a reason right now, but take your time. Then I went home. When I get home, she calls me. And we talk like we normally used to talk every 2 times a week. We talked, and so for the next almost 3 weeks, we kept on meeting and dating and whatever. And by the way, to tell you the truth, my heart was at peace. I never in one day ever asked her, what is your answer to my question? No. But one day, April 3rd, we are going for a birthday party for one of my friends. She gave me a note. In that note, among the many things she said, is that this is my heart, I'm giving it to you. If ever you get tired of it, give it back to me, and it is okay. We can even enjoy, so that we can even be able to enjoy a cup of coffee after that. I was like, which fool can receive such a letter, receive such a heart, and even treat it badly? I was very excited. Actually, that day we went for a birthday party of one of our dear friends, Dr. Keith Mugarura. And he didn't know, but we had started dating that day of his birthday. So we can never forget his birthday, because that's when we officially started dating many, many years ago. I was in second year campus. She was in first year. And we dated for almost 6-7 years before we got married. But what I want to teach you from just that experience, and this is my story, it's not yours, is that there was a deliberate effort on my part to make friends with many people. But also, as we made friends, my eyes were not blind. I was looking out to see. And by God's grace, I started identifying certain qualities in this girl which resonated with me. And also, there was a certain mutual respect about our relationship. Now, when the dating began, all the lovey-dovey things suddenly were beginning to be shaken. Because now, we were faced with the reality that we are in this relationship, and we are in this relationship for keeps. We are going nowhere. Luckily, there was a couple that were dating, friends of ours. I'd gotten to meet the gentleman through the lady, because the lady was also a Gayaza girl, and she was my friend. And the lady also became friends with Claire. So we started meeting at Makerere University guest house once in a while, and we would chat. And then the real me started coming out. I've been raised with sisters and brothers, but my sisters are closer to me than my bigger brothers. And so I realized I started picking up certain mannerisms of girls that, like the way you fight with silent treatment and so on and so forth. And I realized as I was dating that was not the way to go. And this couple was very generous. They used to check on us almost every month. Would just hang out, have a cup of tea, then say, how is your relationship going? Then we would start, but the other day, then the other day, and we were in a safe space of accountability. And I thank God for that couple, Ben Michael and Shifra Kiza. Amazing guys, amazing people, who held us accountable up to today. Even when we make choices about our kids that they are not happy with, they'll call us and say, here, no. In fact, Ben Michael is godfather to my son, and Shifra is godmother to our firstborn our firstborn daughter. Shifra is godmother to our firstborn daughter. So you can see that in that relationship, there was now an accountability system. But the other thing we never did, we never separated from our friends. Our friends knew we were dating, but we kept hanging out with our friends. That's why I told you earlier that my friend Eric would visit with me to visit Claire in Africa Hall. And then he would say, no, loosen up, You don't take this relationship so seriously. Enjoy it, be at peace, I remember one of those days when I'd come with my list of things to talk about. I want to talk about which war, which what, all the things. And I'll tell her, in law, we are studying the law of torts. And this is what torts is like, blah, 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 blah. And I think Claire would bear with me. Then when all the things in my list had done, then she would say, okay, now talk to me. And I'm like, what? Talk to me. I'm like, what do you mean talk to you? I've been talking for the last 45 minutes. I said, I want you to talk to me. She wanted to hear my heart. She wanted to hear the vulnerable me. And many men, we do not get vulnerable with the ladies. We are always pretending this, pretending the other. We must stop hiding, because when you hide, you never connect with the lady. And so I learned to be vulnerable. I learned to tell her my fears. I learned to tell her my aspirations, what I wanted to do, where I wanted to do my, my practice, why I wanted to do my master's, my PhD, and all these things. I started telling her about my family and so on and so forth. Basically unpacking who I was for her to understand who it is that is dating her. But it had to be for her to say, no, tell me, talk to me, And so I did that. I did that, and we learned to love each other. One of the things we used to laugh at other people. One couple we used to laugh at was my sister. My sister was dating her husband, and I would see he would come home, pick her up, by 6 a.m. he would be at home to pick her up to go to church. And I'm like, I would tell Claire, can these guys meet at church? Like, must he first come from wherever he is on the opposite direction to pick her up so that they go to church together? And I was always the kind of, these guys are just too much. And on her hand, Claire was like, don't call me honey, don't call me love. I have my own name. Don't hold my hand. Don't tell people we are dating, blah, 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 blah. My dear, when the love finally entered the brain, like we say, the next thing I knew, I was at her home. I was at her room in Africa Hall. I even remember 8:21. At 6:30 a.m., I'm there to pick her up to go to church. And then I would find a note from her written from in those days we didn't have mobile phones. I find a note saying, sorry, I went back home to be with my parents. We shall meet at church at 10 a.m. And I would walk out of Africa Hall empty-handed. Okay, I had the note with me, but I'm like, Ruhweza, what are you doing? But now the brain, the heart had finally opened up, The brain could not explain to me what was going on. The heart was on its own agenda. Suddenly, the things I was doing, I was writing her notes. I was leaving them in different parts of her room. I was totally struck. I started writing poetry for her and so on. And we started enjoying such an amazing relationship. But one thing we never did was to disrespect each other. I learned to fight well. I learned to lead, guided by other people, of course. The day I realized I was in love was one day during a banking law. I think it was an exam or a class. And my mind was just on Claire. I said, oh my goodness, I'm a gone case now. But it was good. It was a good relationship. But that never made me despise other friends of mine. Actually, I looked out to become friends with her friends, and I introduced my friends to hers because I knew we must be mutually accountable. And these friends have continued to be our friends up to today. So, in conclusion, what can I say? What can I say about relationships apart from the things that I said before? Respect each other. Speak to each other honestly. And by the other thing we used to do, we used to go to St. Francis Chapel and pray, and lay our hearts to the Lord and pray about it. Now, one of the most bold moves I made was to now hold myself accountable to mentors. I went to my pastor, Pastor Chris Komagum, then of KPC, now Watoto Church, and said, Pastor Chris, this is the girl I love. Hold me accountable. Hold me accountable about her. So he spoke to us, and then he started calling us and other groups and a few other couples every Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. We would go and pray with him, and he would advise us and so on and so forth. The other people I went to see was I went to my mother and said, Mommy, this is the girl, Munang. This is the girl I like. Actually, to be honest, my mother sensed it even before. Because another girl had come to visit me. I'll not tell you her name. She visited me when I was sick, but she came with her topi, her cape on the head. So when she gets into the door with her cape on the head, my mother greets her. The girl didn't hear. Instead, the girl started talking to me. When the girl left, my mother said, that one, no. But when Claire came, I think she was decent. I even remember the clothing Claire used to wear. She was really well. She's a very disciplined woman, very conscious about her appearances. She's not into bling slay queen kind of, if you see some of my pictures, you'll see what I mean. But she dresses decently. She minds what other people think. And now we keep on saying, I have to represent Ruhweza family and so on and so forth. So I was accountable to, and then I went escorted her to her home. I said, this time I must go to see where this girl comes from. I must go to see where she comes from, and also hold myself accountable there so that they know who I am. So I went to her home. I sat. I remember that time her mother had escorted her father to the airport, and also the journey. We used the taxi, of course. Claire kept on saying, you can stop me. I'm like, no, we continue. Until she realized her fate was that this boy is coming to my home. There is no more safety in Africa Hall. So I get there. Her mother comes back. I greet the mom. Then when I saw the mom, I'm like, okay, my wife will look like that when she grows up. This is not a bad thing after all, Yeah, so there is hope that my wife will be a hit even at that age, So that even gave me more resolve. Are we together? And then I met her. I later met her father. I met her uncles, her people. I was present so that they would hold me accountable. They would hold us accountable. Our friends now could hold us accountable and so on. And then we started receiving advice. I remember her mother bought her a book on relationships and so on and so forth, and that really helped us. Did we fight? Yes, we fought. Because Claire is the firstborn in her family, and she's used to taking charge. After all, she's even a Mochiga. And I was like, no, I need to be the one. Even when it came to deciding the order of service, font, and design, I said, I am going to do it. Many girls are the ones who handle those things. Even choosing the cake, we went together. I had to remain the leader. Even where we pray from in church today, we had to make some hard decisions to choose the church where we are today. And we thank God that we chose where we are today at Worship Harvest. You have to lead, but you also have to be vulnerable enough to say sorry where you've made a mistake. And even when you are right, do not load it upon your loved one. Say, I told you. There's a time we had a disagreement on something, and I told her, this is what I think. She said no. So later on, she took my advice and then she came to me and said, okay, you can go ahead and tell me I told you so. I said, no. Why should I tell you that I told you so? You know, that stuff shall remain in my brain that I told you so, but I won't tell it to you. You know, that is what leadership is about in a relationship. All right. So as I speak today, this September, we are going to make 20 years as a married couple. Yeah, it just feels like yesterday, but it gives you an idea of how old we are. The Lord has blessed us. Yeah, Lord has blessed us. We have 4 children, and we are now learning how to raise teenagers. You know, but at the same time, we are so passionate about leading others and sharing our story. We do a lot of conversations in relationships, and